Oh, this guy will just start. Okay.
Ready to start? All right, let's start.
5, 4. Hello and welcome to the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast, the weekly horror podcast where we take listener and guest suggested movies. We break them down into the good, the bad, and anything else that we find fun and irrelevant. Is what we usually do when we aren't live at Anime Ottawa. So, who works the Graveyard Shift besides myself? These people. The podcast is usually done with my co-host, but they live in different areas than me, and they can't be here now. They are John Valls and Alicia York. John lives in Texas. It's a bit of a drive, but don't hold it against him. He's one of the good ones. And he was kind enough to make some content for you to enjoy in his absence. And we'll get to that shortly. And Alicia isn't on the stage, but she is in the tech booth. So say hi to Alicia. And we will dispense with our usual film review format, and instead we will deliver a fun history horror experience for you all. My name is Mike, and I never work the Graveyard Shift alone. Please welcome the man who puts the boo in weeaboo, Joshua Clough.
Let me hear you, Anime Ottawa 2025! All right, so I am Joshua Clough. I am the administrator and creator of the extraordinary Geeks, Gamers, and Nerds of Ottawa Gatineau Facebook group. Come check us out after the show. And we also have John.
Yep, he did want to say hi and tell you a little bit about himself, so here he is.
Does my hair look okay? So nervous. Wait, what? Camera's on the arm? Hi. My name's John Valls. I'm 38 years old, and I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm a fellow co-host on the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast. A couple things about me. I like horror movies, apparently. And I like playing with fire.
Don't try this at home, kids.
And I like making chainmail. And parlors, like what you see on the wall back here. And I love my fur babies. I'm a big animal person.
I knew that would get a reaction. We got a Ghostbuster in the house!
Sweet!
Oh, this is why you should go out. I mean, listen to the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast, right? All right, have a good one.
A little bit of trivia, the Black Cat's name is Dr. Acula. And that pretty much cinched it that he was going to be a co-host on a horror podcast. So, while horror stories abound in all cultures, every single place has their own unique elements that add to the tapestry that is a scary story. Japan is spoiled for fables with supernatural monsters, from vampires and demons in Castlevania to witchcraft in Kiki's Delivery Service, to the grotesque body horror that is My Friend Totoro, where a giant cat becomes a bus so it can consume multiple people.
Don't ask about the emergency exit.
To the sheer hell world that is the Pokemon world, where the terror never ends, and we're going to get into that near the end of the show. So, but what is this show? what are we here to give you all today? And that is knowledge. Beautiful, terrifying knowledge. All within our Sinister Syllabus.
So we're going to be talking about folklore. So many horror icons come from stories that are older than moving pictures. We're going to give you a sample of that. We have tropes and homages. Cultures borrow from each other, and we're going to provide some examples of this.
And horror in Japanese media. It's not all blood and guts, and we provide perspectives on history that contributed to it that you may not have considered, from how anime began, to when it told scary stories, to how it changed the world in many ways. And closing thoughts will be on Pokemon, mad scientists, and then a Q&A, so you can get some laughs to go with your knowledge. Now, Josh, start us out.
All right. Now, I could start by telling you about how unique, truly rich and unique Japanese folklore can be, but I'm going to let the Nickelodeon 2012 Ninja Turtles sum it up. That's a cucumber, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right, Ninja. We yokai will steal all of your souls through your butt! Through your butt? Why, that comes from real Japanese legend. Come on, let's head for the dojo.
All right, thank you, Turtles. So let's take a look at the main cast of J-horror and some of the tropes thereof. Now, most anime horror that I have seen, personally, focuses more on Western monsters. Who here remembers the Darkstalker series of games? Anybody? Oh, we got a few hands up here. Okay. We're going to ignore that god-awful American cartoon, though. But who are the characters in it? We have werewolves, mummies, zombies, Frankenstein's monster, and of course, vampires. Vampires are probably the most common in horror anime that use Western influences. Hellsing and Castlevania both use the most popular, most well-known vampire of all, Count Dracula, but in very different ways. Hellsing makes him a badass monster slayer. Castlevania makes him a deadly, sympathetic, even sexy villain. Now, personally, I wish that more Western monsters got the anime treatment, and I'm not the only one. John has one that he feels deserves a mention, and so he will.
Hello again, folks. John Falls here. While we were on the discussion of Western horror monsters appearing in anime, such as the vampire, wanted to give honorable mention to one of my favorite animes, Shiki. Now, Shiki, produced by Gallery, is a 2010 TV series adaptation of an adaptation. The manga it's based on, illustrated by Ryu Fujisaki, was actually adapted from the 1998 novel of the same title, written by Fuyumi Ono. It tells the story of a quiet Japanese town called Tsutoba that is impacted by a series of mysterious deaths coinciding with the arrival of a strange family who move into an abandoned mansion at the top of the hill. The director of the town's hospital initially suspects an epidemic. However, as the deaths continue and he further investigates, he learns the deaths are the work of Shiki, translated to corpse demon or death spirit, who stalk at night and drink people's blood, converting their victims into new Shiki. Now, if you're thinking this plot sounds similar to that of Salem's Lot, you'd be correct to make the comparison. The novel actually was dedicated to Stephen King's famous 1975 work. And while it does borrow from Salem's Lot to a large degree, it takes many unique and unexpected turns in its second act that make this one a highly worthy watch.
Now, personally, I think that the 80s slashers would work well in anime. And then again, I'm scared aroused! But the reverse is also true. Western horror animation has adapted Japanese creatures. Yokai is a sort of catch-all term for supernatural creatures, kind of like how elves, goblins, and ogres all fall under the category of fairy. The aforementioned Darkstalkers, simply because you're bound to see at least one of them cosplay here. The Shirime, with an eye for a butthole. It's not evil, it just wants to mess with you. The TMNT, have been mistaken for and encountered kappa, as we saw. Kappa is a Japanese goblin creature that resembles a humanoid turtle with a bowl-like indentation on its head. It can be appeased by offering them a cucumber. That's what hit Michelangelo in the face. Or by tricking them into spilling the water in their bowl dent. The spider queen Jorogomo, a sort of spider centaur woman, has seen her influence in possibly too many examples to count, but most notably, D&D's Lolth.
That woman's got legs for days.
The Tsukumogami, or artifact spirits, are basically every cartoon with smiling, dancing household objects, and several Pokemon. Which brings me to the influence of Japanese monsters on their own media, so let's start with Pokemon. Vulpix is a kitsune, or fox spirit. Jinx, despite what some people think, is actually based on the hag Yamauba, and the Japanese trend of Ganguro, where women will bleach their hair, wear spray tan, and wear white makeup.
No making fun of my Snooki-chan.
Now, some people find this so hideous that they give Ganguro women the derogatory nickname of Yamauba girls. Misdreavus is a Nukekubi, a vampire-like creature whose head detaches from its body at the night to seek prey. There are other examples, but we're pressed for time. So let's move on to my favorite creature from Japanese lore, the Onryo. These are wrathful ghosts, usually of women, often seen with black hair hanging loose around their faces and in white dresses. Sadly, this was not invented by Sadako of Rinyu. Instead, it's a depiction of Japanese burial garb.
Her name's Onryo, and she hails from Japan.
Of course, this is more commonly associated now with Sadako or Kayako from Ju-on the Grudge. Like most ghosts, they were wronged in their lives, often murdered. But unlike Western ghost lore, they're especially cruel and hateful, caring little for unfinished business, instead venting their wrath on anyone who gets in their way. Their furies are almost single-minded and serve no purpose other than allowing the spirit to sow havoc. And perhaps the most famous Onryo from Japanese urban legend is one that we could not find a child-appropriate picture of, Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. Legend says that her face was carved up by a jealous suitor. Now she wanders Tokyo wearing a face mask. Not an uncommon sight. She will corner you and remove her mask and ask you, "Do you think I'm pretty?" If you say yes, she carves your face to look like hers, giving you a Joker smile. If you say no, she kills you for insulting her. The only way to get away is to be indecisive and run for it as she decides what to do with you. But she can also be appeased by giving her candy. This is an interesting trend with Japanese creatures. Kappa love cucumbers, as we saw. Kuchisake Onna loves candy. Ryuk from Death Note loves apples. And coffee is the only people food that the ghouls in Tokyo Ghoul can stomach. This calls back to the tradition of offering food to spirits seen in many cultures, not just Japan. With that, let's talk about the tropes and homages of J-horror. Who can tell me some of the rules to survive a Western slasher movie? Don't drink. Don't get high. Don't have premarital...
Special hugs. No premarital special hugs.
Don't be alone.
And especially in cabins.
Don't be alone. That's another one.
Right back.
Never say I'll be right back.
Yeah, don't go to investigate that noise by yourself.
Thank you, Matthew Lillard. So the final girl trope has actually become sort of a meta joke in its way in Western cinema. The good girl, air quotes, who makes it to the end and defeats the killer. This is not the case with J-horror. In J-horror, there are no innocents. It does not matter how sober or chaste you are. Anyone who watches the tape and ring you is cursed. Anyone who enters the house, or honestly has anything to do with the house, in Ju-on is doomed. Unlike Western horror, the good girl does not make it to the end. Not all the time. Technology is also a big factor. Cell phones, VHS tapes. You kids even remember VHS tapes? Even the internet sort of takes the idea of the Tsukumogami, where an object gains its soul after 100 years, and perverts it. Instead of being an ancient object that is harmless, this is something new and immediately evil. Another common element is body horror. Now, Mike here is going to touch on Junji Ito, who's pretty much Japan's Cronenberg, but a favorite of mine is...
Bio Booster Armor Guyver wears organic armor that grows inside of you and eats its host if its control metal is damaged. There's mutant monsters called Zoonoids. They're pretty dang gory fights. This superhero action series definitely has some horror earmarks. Now, for the main event, Mike, take it away.
So we get to horror in Japanese media. As media became prevalent in Japan, so did anime. While manga and even anime had existed in many forms previously, we're going to start with Astro Boy. Making his manga debut in 1952 and his anime debut in 1963, he was a robot that wanted to become as real a boy as possible, mimicking the Italian horror fairy tale of Pinocchio. And yes, that's Jiminy Cricket about to get mollywopped with a hammer. Because Pinocchio in the original story is just a menace to Venice.
It was all the story was everything.
Yes. A little less terrifying. This really triggered a momentum in the creation of animation studios, period. And productions from there dabbled in sci-fi and fantasy settings with light sprinkles like Ghost of the Moon. It was more dark fantasy than horror, but it did plant the seeds. Science fiction and horror often go hand in hand, as they often use the same source of fear or societal issues and concerns of the day that get taken to extreme. Star Trek would be confronting racism, the Cold War, cultural division, showing what we can achieve when we overcome them or what will await us if we don't. With such episodes as Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, which really, it spoke about the silliness of skin-based racism with all the subtlety of an atom bomb. Which takes us to a creature that spews flames and levels cities. It's not just an accidental creation of the atom bomb, he represents the bomb. It's impossible to not really consider Godzilla a Japanese horror movie, despite how it may appear to us as a silly costume smashing toys and models. We've covered Western movies on our own podcast that cover the dangers of nuclear weapons and exploration of the atom that go astray. But Japan has a singular perspective on that. It's not one of curiosity of what may be. It came from the only place in the world that knew what it did. They grew up among those who lost people, bore the scars of radiation burns, witnessed the shame of being on the wrong side of a global conflict. Those people also grew up in a culture that took inspiration from Western sources like Ray Bradbury, Rod Serling, Isaac Asimov, Bram Stoker, Mary Shelley, and more. This would prime the future mangaka to take on more societal issues as they grew up in a rapidly industrializing world, dealing with the trauma and shame of World War II, among other cultural issues. This culminated in a passion project that spoke from a truly Japanese perspective and made the entire world take notice of the sheer passion and talent from this island that the West until previously just thought made electronics and video games. And they would be in for a surprise. Welcome to the 80s. Radical! Horror exploded in media in the 80s, both in the East and the West. Sci-fi would lapse into horror with movies like Predator and Alien. And Japan would do that with Akira. And to say that slide was inspirational would be a bit of an understatement, as it would be revealed in its many subsequent homages. Here's a sample. Now, if you missed that, because there was a lot, let's just break it down a little bit for the variations. In no particular order, we got motorcycles, land speeders with no wheels, mounted animals like giant cats, including a lion and a cockroach, my favorite among that being the horse ridden by a samurai rabbit. Usagi Yojimbo, also from the CGI Ninja Turtles, which I gotta give props to. They did an episode where the turtles are haunted by dream beavers, voiced by horror icons like Freddy Krueger, the Crypt Keeper, and featuring Chop Top from Chainsaw Massacre 2. The Rat King is voiced by Jeffrey Combs. What more do you want from this series?
That's why I love it.
And getting back to the vehicles, bicycles, one of which looked like a penny farthing designed by Fisher-Price. And it was written by a kid who looked so smug towards the camera, like, yeah, I did that. And the bike's pink, so what? Another one is a kid riding a toy that looks like a pogo ball. We got a kid playing with his toys. We got the Lego movie where toys are playing with themselves.
Don't get the wrong idea.
Another one is a full-on 50s style car with no driver, possibly an homage to Christine.
Maybe.
A moped, only in anime could a moped travel fast enough to produce the friction for a slide. Spider-Man subverted that with no rider at all, just the motorbike. The Fungies included a landing before the slide. Sherlock Holmes added the danger element of having a train awaiting at the end of the slide. And finally, we got a moped cycle combo driven by a dog because an Akira reference is in the Paw Patrol movie. So let's just talk about Akira. Tetsuo! What country is the largest exporter of maple syrup? Canada! Starting as a manga in 1982, written by Katsuhiro Otomo, this movie parallels the devastation and fears of the atom bomb by starting with Tokyo being blown up, and then it somehow gets worse. The artwork and the imagery is iconic, the story is classic, the horror analogs of citywide devastation as a result of a fallible government are right there on the face. The movie focuses on a biker gang that uncovers government-funded experiments on children, and it culminates in a body horror ending that would make David Cronenberg smile. Now, we're not here to break down the film, but when you leave, you can listen to our podcast, episode 289, Tetsuo the Blob Man. Yes, we are clever. The point is that this movie announced to the world anime is more than just cheap, low-frame, laser show Saturday morning cartoons like G.I. Joe and Transformers, but capable of delivering cinematic masterpieces with massive style, deeply personal messages, horrific imagery, and artists just displaying their own interpretations of a national tragedy, and movies would just be one of those fronts. Video games broke out in the 1970s, but slowly died off in the 80s due to a lack of creativity and diversity, making many games too simple or repetitive or just low quality. For every Pac-Man arcade cabinet, there was Pac-Man for Atari. For every Donkey Kong arcade cabinet, there was Donkey Kong for Atari. For every Fonz arcade cabinet where you could be the Fonz doing motocross, there was E.T. for Atari. But this isn't about that, though. This is about the aftermath. Nintendo redeemed consoles with the NES. We old farts know and love that thing, and it opened up a whole new media for horror as well. The NES tried to use games that took Western horror film licenses, and they were abysmal due to the fact that they would try to adapt R-rated movies to a G-rated console, like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and PG-13 movies like Ghostbusters that relied more on its humor than ghost fighting action. That just didn't translate well on systems.
Come to low-res Freddy.
So, welcome to 16-bit. I'm not going to finish that sentence. So, we're going to focus on the two that changed the game, pun intended. The first was Castlevania! Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That cashed in on Hollywood. It abandoned cashing in on Hollywood and just thought, what if we had a Van Helsing guy just take on all the monsters of literature and give it a banging soundtrack? It took a Japanese game studio to make Western audiences realize what they were missing. Countless games and 2 animated Netflix series later, it's stronger than ever. Plus, it makes for sweet muse. Now, for the lesser known in the West, but not the case in the East, is Sweet Home.
Alabama.
Never released overseas due to a calamitous trifecta of 1, being based on a Japanese language film, 2, the low popularity of RPGs at the time, and 3, being just too darn scary for Nintendo of America to give its approval. We're going to go into the details of the movie in episode 298, Mommy May Cry. Again, we're clever. As it was featured on our video game marathon. All you need to know is that this Famicom adaptation pushed the console to its very limits. It delivered a genuine horror experience to gamers with jump scares, grotesque imagery, first-person perspectives for entering rooms, inventory management, and endings based on player choices. This was simply a masterpiece in Japan, and it was set for a remake on the PlayStation, but the studio lost the license for the film, so they swapped in American characters and locations, keeping the inventory system and the jump scares, different endings, and released it under the name Biohazard, though in the West you may know it as...
We got some fans in the house.
Spawning multiple games and movies, both live action and CGI anime. If you see people dressed like Ashley, Leon, Jill, or Wesker, you got Sweet Home to thank for that. Resident Evil blends sci-fi with horror using genetic experimentation to give us menacing mutants. So, Akira, Castlevania, and Sweet Home Oh My. The 80s was a good time to make scary things in Japan, and with Resident Evil being the successor, it takes us to the 90s, where video rentals really came to the rescue of Western audiences with dubs of Japanese films, OVAs, and miniseries that just wouldn't get cinematic releases. And holy rice balls, we ate well. We got to see films we just couldn't show here, like End of Evangelion, Memories, Ninja Scroll. What we can get into is two examples of psychological horror, both by Satoshi Kon, a man who got his start working for Akira creator Katsuhiro Otomo. We'll start with Perfect Blue.
That movie's trippy.
Loosely adapted from the Japanese novel Perfect Blue Complete Metamorphosis because they were always using word salad in their titles. It focuses on an idol singer named Mima who quits her J-pop group to become a full-time actress and accept more mature roles than her bubblegum image would allow.
Very mature, not for kids.
This movie just blew my mind when I first rented it. It focuses on her challenges of adapting to a new career, a mental health crisis born of her insecurities when she sees a reflection of her idol self bullying her to go back to the one thing people want from her, causing her to doubt reality itself and questioning her involvement in a string of murders of people closely associated with her career change. So it's a really bad time to have a stalker chasing after you.
There's never a good time.
Well, she finds out there's worse times, especially if you start thinking, oh, that guy coming towards me, he'd just be a manifestation of my imagination. Oh, the knife hurts. So, yeah, it resulted in some of the earliest depictions of cyberbullying, a new form of horror that some people know all too well. This movie culminates in all of her threats, both in her head and in reality, coming together in a climax of a visual masterpiece. Illusions and reality blend together, mixing and separating until she has no choice but to accept the truth. After you see the movie, you can hear us talk about it in episode 288, False Idols. Even more prevalent is Paprika, a movie that was so mesmerizing in its scenery and storytelling. Christopher Nolan is often accused of ripping it off for Inception, and, there are some similarities.
Similarities.
Yeah, except, there's a big difference. Unlike Inception, Paprika is about a person using dream entry technology to fight off someone who's misusing it and hurting the public for nefarious reasons, and the protagonist loses track of the difference between fantasy and reality while fighting for their life and recovering their own identity. So as you can see, it's totally different.
Absolutely.
This is another example of anime being as mesmerizing as it is horrifying. The idea of technology being able to enter people's heads to identify and diagnose trauma and contribute to your health is wonderful. But the possibility that it can be used to implant false memories and induce trauma where you just aren't safe, your sleep is like Freddy Krueger by way of Lawnmower Man. But what if you don't have to question reality being a totally nuts and maddening hellscape, because you can rest secure in the knowledge that it really just is all that bad and there's nothing wrong with your perception and there's nothing you can do about it? No horror and anime discussion is complete without a nod to Junji Ito, who I am convinced is the child of Rod Serling and H.P. Lovecraft, raised by David Cronenberg and fed nothing but bath salts. This man takes terror to cosmic levels, from being chased by balloons with your own face on them to holes that can peel you into them. Sorry, wrong picture. By the way, that phrase is going in my wedding vows.
That's why you're still single.
Fair. So this man takes human hybris tales like the real-life works of Unit 731, which was a biological weapons division during World War II performing human and bacterial experiments. He takes that sad truth and instead uses it to create a story about a sentient stink cloud that murders ocean wildlife and sends their decaying corpses on a mission to just ruin the world in the story Gyo, which was adapted into a movie called Tokyo Fish Attack. And yeah, it looks stupid. Trust me, it's not. Like, this movie's great. It's got three ladies who just shouldn't be friends, trying to spend the night in a cottage, except one is a total jerk who lives by the phrase, girls just want to have fun in the worst possible ways. And she makes life hell for another friend who looks like Marcy from Peanuts as a grown-up. And the third just leaves when her boyfriend gets swarmed by walking fish. We're not going to spoil anything here for you, but we do talk about Gyo in one of our podcast's most recent episodes. So if you do want to check out our show, you can hear our thoughts in detail, and it is probably one of our funniest episodes because look at the premise. You think we're not going to be cracking each other up over this? And Junji Ito has recently adapted several of his manga into animated specials, including Uzumaki, the Spiral Story, also covered this month on Animation April of the Graveyard Shift Horror Podcast. Which takes us to our closing thoughts. We're in the home stretch now. Now we can talk about Pokemon, weird science, and more.
All right, now we said we would be back to Pokemon, and here we are. Pokemon looks cute, but it's deranged. You get kicked out of home at 8. Mom spent 8 years raising you. Now she can live. Schools are optional. You can go to school or just intern for a crackpot who will send you across the entire landmass with no financial support or bodyguards to do his research of Pokemon for class credit.
If that.
Terrorists will ambush you and kidnap and torture you to take your beloved animal companion. The police force is one woman who cannot be everywhere at once. The army will not stop them. It's up to you. Sleep with one eye open.
Grip your pillow tight.
Animals will just try to murder you beyond the city limits unless you force one to fight one of its own kind on your behalf. You better make peace with eating living creatures because everything is sentient. Even the rocks, the ice cream, the keys, the Pokeballs. It's a trap. Bee drills are 6 feet tall. You are a child. Psyducks can become scanners and just treat your skull like a microwaved egg. Share my cranial pain. It hurts me not to hurt you. Sigh. Ghost Pokemon. Now, does this mean that Pokemon die and some just stay your servants? Or is this karma? And only the souls of trainers become ghost Pokemon to learn what it's like to be in violent servitude. Do they retain previous life memories? I'm sure if Ghastly could speak, his name would be Kilby. Cubone wears the skull of his mother.
Every single one of them.
Every single one. This is an epidemic. Is it orchestrated or is it natural? I don't think I want to know the answer. There are god Pokemon who are natural disasters and are controlled by children.
And now we can get to the mad scientists. You know, anime gave us not a particularly unique creation. It didn't create it, but it did give us a unique take on it. The mad scientist. We love them. Those crazy diamonds shine the brightest when they're spitting in God's eye and creating an abomination for whatever reason floats their boat. And we can lump them into 3 basic archetypes. The survivor at any cost. Simply embracing the horrors of a society under siege by adapting unwilling subjects or themselves into turning them into whatever is attacking them so they just have a new place in the world order. From human beings, you can now become bloated gas bags or 7-foot-tall cockroaches. You just need to adapt and accept the new normal. In it for the money. This post-grad who answered a Craigslist ad turns an entire city into a zombie horde simply because the government's not going to pay for zombie research. And if you pay them, you get whatever you want. They don't have moral objections as long as they've got a lab with competent assistants and enough safeguards between them and their test subjects, and a good parking spot doesn't hurt. And then finally, the true believer. Not in the goodness of humanity, the survival of the species, even the sanctity of life. Simply science. These lunatics are in it to be pioneers. It's all about the discovery of just what hasn't been done yet. They are the lab nerd that belongs at a war crime tribunal where every question of why would you do this is answered with because someone had to be first and the rest of you cowards decided it was me. Exactly. Now, here's some examples, and we'll be asking you for some later. We've got Dr. Koyonagi from Gyo, who created artificial harnesses for humans so if not to fight infections, but simply when you do get infected, you'll be riding around in style. When his nephew is infected and comes for him for treatment, his response is, "No, I can't curse your stinky burp farts, but I got this sweet burp and fart powered ride that you can crawl around in while I work on something better. Just stick these hoses in your holes and off you go." And when he gets
This is a kid show, dude.
I got it. And I didn't say witch holes. You mean we got plenty here that are all PG. Now, just when, like, okay, so when his time to be infected comes, he's not shaken. He just makes a Burton Fart-powered glider for himself, so he doesn't even have to deal with life on the ground. That guy's living large. Then we got the career scientist. Everyone at Umbrella Corporation, but we're going to focus on Wesker. This guy was the mercenary lab coat that helped develop the T-virus when it wasn't developing at his pace. He quits, becomes a SWAT soldier for the government, and just uses that. You know, a job like working SWAT should pay enough, but no, that's just his front. He's using it as an excuse to meet other groups of nerds and just steal data from them, only coming back to Umbrella Corp to clean them out later, and use the perfected version of their research on himself to become a super soldier, and luckily it didn't turn him into a hulking blob beast like everyone else, except 4 games later when it did. And then it took a volcano and some serious rock punching to take him out. Rest in ashes. Honorable mention goes to the Doctor. No, not the Time Lord, but the scientist of Millennium from Helsing who created all the monsters simply because the Nazis paid him. And for the true believer, we've got Hojo. Experimented on dozens of children with genetic samples of what he thought were the precursors of humanity, and when he discovered that material was an alien of malicious intent that killed those precursors, he just thought, okay, I'm going to experiment on my unborn child then, creating Sephiroth. There are no mistakes with Hojo, just unintended results on the road of science. And now we can get to some suggestions for movies, mostly for... We're going to start with suggestions for kids, because, you know, everyone deserves to be terrified.
So we got Kiki's Delivery Service. We joked about witchcraft, but it's a Ghibli movie, so why not see it? Hotel Transylvania series. Some grown themes, including tolerating others, learning not to have unreasonable expectations for your children, because they will be exactly what you want after they grow out of the phase that you don't like. Promised Neverland. Children in an orphanage are raised by a nun, apparently very successfully because kids get adopted on a regular basis. And they're so happy they're never heard from again. From just being so happy, don't ask questions. The Black Cauldron. First Disney movie to get a PG rating. Wonder why? Check it out. The Promised Neverland. Oh, we did that. We touched on it, sorry. Secret of Nim. Oddly, based on a true story. Check out the Rat Utopia. The Last Unicorn. Don't let the soundtrack and dazzling visuals fool you. When the harpy shows up, this takes on some terrifying aspects, but shies away from gore and allows children to legally see it and be terrorized anyway.
Theater of the mind. It's what you don't see that will keep you up at night.
Coraline. Enough said. Yamishibai, Japanese ghost stories. Tons of folklore stories in bite-sized format, but be warned, it is Japanese folklore, so it gets weird. Sleepy Hollow, from the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, another Disney movie. Still holds up with solid animation, delivering some sheer terror thanks to the voice acting and the scene of the horseman held back by the bridge. And when Ichabod finally thinks he's safe, a burning jack-o'-lantern launches toward the screen. On par with Mickey's Christmas Carol, where Scrooge gets tossed into his own grave, the coffin bursts open in terrific hellfire and rises to consume him while the ghost of Christmas yet to come cackles as he falls in.
Yeah, that's pretty... I mean, that scared the hell out of me. I'm like, this is Christmas. What are you doing this to me for?
Oh, Christmas is the new Halloween, dude.
And for the adults in the crowd, we've got some suggested viewing for you if you haven't already got there. Paprika, it's Inception, but better. Perfect Blue, excellent psychological thriller touching on issues of identity. We got Akira, the horrors of science in the hands of government that are unprepared for the consequences. Unicorn Wars, the brutality of conflict set against the fluffiest of backdrops. Bird Boy, drug addiction and desperation plus class warfare and police being, well, police. We got Lily Cat. If you like Alien but just wish the cat didn't make it to the end and they crammed in a stupid love story, then this movie's for you.
If you wish the cat didn't make it to the end, you're a monster.
Ninja Squirrel. Violent, bloody, and one of the main inspirations for The Matrix. Vampire Hunter D. This was created as one of the earliest anime productions targeted explicitly at the male teenager adult demographic in lieu of family audiences, and it capitalized on the original and the emerging OVA market due to its violent content and a heavy influence from European horror mythology, primarily the British film studio Hammer Productions. So it was made for horror fans. Oh, we got Hammer Studio fans in the audience? Yay!
Christopher Lee, best Dracula.
Our podcast does a occasional theme called January Lee, where we celebrate the works of Christopher Lee, so you might enjoy that. And then we got Biohunter. 2 scientists are attempting to distribute the cure for a demon virus that's affecting people all over Japan. However, things become complicated because one of them got infected. So he begins his battle with himself as he tries to control his demon side, but save the lives of others, wielding its great strength. Soul Station. This was released after, but created before, Train to Busan. This zombie movie makes its collapse of society a result of societal issues in Korea, ranging from homelessness to absolutely terrible men getting what they deserve. Dante's Inferno. Great for the first half, kinda stinks for the latter half. King of Thorn. People are dying from a plague, so let's just go into cryo sleep for a century until there is a cure. You know, whatever's come first. And then, oh no, the world is monsters now. Repopulating is going to be challenging. Belladonna of Sadness. A woman is attacked on her wedding night, seeks demonic powers to get revenge, and surprise, becomes demonic. Castlevania. Excellent series begins with Dracula being impressed with a kind, smart, funny woman who enters his life. So much so they marry, become a family, and he begins to leave the house more just to learn more about humanity. Then gets a lesson in it when the church comes along and kills her from messing with Dracula. And probably also just, being seen reading in public. Needless to say, this kicks off events that leads to excellent characters from both good and evil sides just being excellent at what they do. Extreme violence. Plague Dogs. Someone thinks, hey, we should release these poor lab animals without asking what they've been subjected to in the lab, and we'll take with them into the world. Watership Down, by the same author of Plague Dogs. It's about bunnies. Fluffy, tiny bunnies. As long as you don't watch it, you can just, rest secure in that. Because this is one of those movies where the animals are metaphors for people, so they don't stay fluffy. Hellsing. Dracula is enslaved and bound to work for the Hellsing family, but he uses guns because I guess having impressive, powerful demon magic just isn't fun. Parasite the Maxim. Alien monsters are possessing people, including our hero. However, his possession falls short, so he ends up reaching an understanding with his parasite while they fight other parasites. And now we can get to the Q&A. Now, we have some lovely tote bags to give away, as you can see here, but they're not just empty. They got stickers in them. Whatever you need to carry with you, you will carry in style with these totes. All you got to do is participate in the Q&A, give us some great questions and or answers. Supplies are limited, and so is our time, so make it awesome. If you have great questions, just raise your hand, and if not, we'll kick things off. Does anybody have any questions to start?
Oh,
okay,
over at the back there. We have a microphone set up if you want to come up to the front.
Yep.
What would both of you say really got you into anime horror just as you were growing up, in general?
What got us into it? Well, as a kid, I've always just loved monsters in any format. When I was probably about your age, that's when anime really started to become popular at my school. So I dabbled in that a little bit. Unfortunately for me, my local Blockbuster, if you know what that is, did not have a very good selection. But fortunately, I had some people that did point me in the right direction over time. And as for Mike?
As for me, my experience with anime began with Astro Boy, G.I. Joe.
Kinda.
Well, it looked like the same studio, even though it was clearly...
It was a Japanese studio making an American cartoon, but yeah.
Yeah, and then, getting into Sailor Moon and stuff as a teenager, the Dragon Ball stuff. So I would start looking at the anime section in Blockbuster, and that's when I noticed some of them were more higher rated. And I was just like, what the hell is this? And then I rented them, and I'm just like, whoa, wow. And I was immediately hooked. So it was just, being a teenager, seeing an R rating on a video and thinking, I wonder if the guy cares enough about his job to let me have this for the weekend.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Enjoy the show.
Oh, over here.
All right, step on up.
Step on up. Step right up. Step right up. Don't be shy.
You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
I have a question. Do you watch any animes that are like seem innocent but are actually horror anime? For example, Madoka Magica.
Ooh, okay. Well, based on that reaction, I'm definitely going to have to check that out.
Yeah, that's a new one on me.
It's the version of all of that tropes.
There's a lot of anime, not a lot, but for example, I'm from a video game that's it like you don't. I'm from Omori, which is a bait and switch game. So
I think you're making some friends in the front row here.
Oh, we definitely like to hear about it after the show. It's interesting because a lot of horrors I got into, like Hellsing, or like I knew they were horrors when I got into them because that's what drew me in the first place. So
Same here.
surprise horrors are.
We would love to hear about them after the show. So please come up after and let us know what the titles are. We'll look them up. Maybe we'll even review them on the podcast.
Okay, so Blue
Maybe
Fishing Hat, come on up.
I was just wondering what your guys' favorite work of Canadian horror is.
Of
Mine
Canadian?
personally is Ginger Snaps.
We did cover that on one of our Halloween episodes. One that really impressed me was one done by an Indigenous First Nations director, Jeff Barnaby, called Blood Quantum. We covered that for Indigenous Peoples Month, and that was just a wonderful take on the zombie film by having zombie infections take over the country, except it's native people that are immune to it. So it just flips the script on the smallpox portion of their history. So just hearing from one of them just flipping it, and them coming up with the white people took the land, and now the land is giving itself back to us. So that was just a great Canadian horror movie, in my opinion.
Sorry to interrupt,
Oh.
but you guys are very low on time.
Okay. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wrap this up.
Oh, gosh, we did. Okay, so, well, it seems like that's all the time we have, but if you love hearing our thoughts and banter and sweet facts and lessons, we have a weekly horror podcast seen right here and on our logos and all that stuff. It is more adult-minded, mind you, because it is covering all kinds of horror movies, of which anime is a portion of it. And, on that podcast, we seek to inform as much as inform you. Yeah, we seek to inform you as much as entertain you. We do have skits, like Fright Night, Castle Freak, Donnie Darko, The Fly, Christine, Get Out. We often throw little skits, like for Get Out, we show up at the house after the events of the movie looking to pick up our order. And for Castle Freak, we wonder what precipitated the argument that where a woman beat her kid to death, her death, not his. And we were just wondering what he could have done to set her off, so we came up with that.
Clean your room, kids.
And Nightmare season of Halloween 3.
Yes.
What was on the other side of that phone call while the guy's screaming, turn it off, turn it off? Who's he talking to? Our skit covers that. So on our show, we take on guests in horror movies of all kinds. We have a vibrant and progressive horror-based community. You can just find it. You can find that out on our cards. They got QR codes where you can see our website as well as join our Facebook group, share memes, suggest movies. We even have transfers if you want to wear our logo on anything. Our supplies are limited, so we're going to be having a draw for that. All you have to do to be entered is tag the Facebook group that's provided on our cards and give us a shout out on your social media, from Blue Sky to Facebook. That enters you in the draw. The more socials you promote us in, the more entries you get, and then you can just wear our awesome looking logo on anything you want. That enters you in the draw. And if you're in the Ottawa area, hell, we'll even deliver it in person.
He's had his shots, don't worry.
And for everyone else that had questions, we thank you for taking part in the panel. We have stickers with our logo that you can slap on anything from your laptop, your phone case, the foreheads of sleeping children, car windows. Let everyone know that you had a great taste in horror review podcasts, and just brag about how you got to see them live at their very first panel at Anime Ottawa 2025. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Anime Ottawa!